Emily was a beautiful and lovely girl who worked as a manager in an office. Her husband, Dario, was employed at a hotel. Both of them were married and they loved each other deeply. Life seemed stable, but things began to change when in Emily's office, a young man caught her attention. She found herself attracted to him and, despite her married life, she started thinking about him. Emily even tried to propose to this man, but at first he clearly refused her. However, Emily was persistent. She continued showing her affection towards him, smiling, talking sweetly, and finding excuses to be near him. Slowly, the young man whose name was Noah also began to feel drawn toward her. Although hesitant in the beginning, Noah could not resist Emily's charm for long. One day, Emily openly expressed her desire and said to Noah, "I want you to spend one night with me." Noah was shocked and immediately refused. He reminded her that she was married and that this was not right. But Emily's insistence grew stronger day by day until finally Noah gave in and agreed. That same week, Emily invited him to a separate room inside the office. When they were alone, Emily hugged Noah tightly and began kissing him passionately. Noah, though still nervous, did not resist. Later that night, Emily returned home very late. Her husband Dario noticed but did not ask her anything. He remained silent, yet a seed of suspicion began to grow in his heart. Though he did not confront Emily, Dario's eyes had already begun to search for the truth. The very next day, Emily once again met Noah in the office. Her eyes were full of affection, and Noah could sense the intensity of her feelings. Although he still felt guilty inside, the attraction between them was growing stronger. Emily began to spend more time with Noah. She would find excuses to call him into her cabin, discuss unnecessary office matters, or simply try to talk to him. Noah initially tried to keep his distance, but Emily's constant efforts slowly weakened his resistance. One afternoon, during lunch break, Emily said to him, "Let's go somewhere outside after work today." "Just you and me." Noah hesitated but eventually agreed. That evening, Emily took him to a quiet cafe. They sat together and Emily openly expressed her emotions. "Noah, I don't know when this happened, but I've fallen in love with you. I can't stop myself now." Noah looked at her in silence for a while. His heart was battling between right and wrong. On one side, he knew she was married and this was dangerous. On the other, Emily's charm and her deep affection were pulling him closer. Finally, he lowered his head and said softly, "Emily, this path is not right. But I can't deny that I'm starting to feel something for you too." Hearing this, Emily's heart filled with joy. She held his hand tightly across the table. That night, when she returned home, Dario again noticed her happiness and the glow on her face. He felt something was changing, but once more he remained silent. In his heart, however, the suspicion grew stronger. He began to observe Emily more carefully, her late returns, her secretive phone calls, and the way she seemed distracted at home. Dario loved Emily deeply, but now doubt had started to poison his peace of mind. As days passed, Emily and Noah's bond grew stronger. What started as casual meetings in the office soon turned into secret moments filled with hidden desires. Emily's persistence had finally broken down Noah's resistance. One afternoon, Emily called Noah into her office under the pretense of discussing some files. Once inside, she locked the door quietly. Noah looked at her nervously and said, "Emily, what are you doing? Someone might find out." But Emily placed her finger on his lips and whispered, "Don't worry, no one will know. Just stay with me for a while." With that, she hugged him tightly. Her warmth and closeness made Noah's heart race. Before long, Emily kissed him, and this time Noah did not resist. Both of them gave in to the emotions they had been holding back for so long. From that day onward, their meetings became more frequent. Whenever they found the chance, Emily would take Noah into a separate room in the office, away from the eyes of others. Every secret meeting made their connection stronger and more dangerous. Meanwhile, at home, Emily began returning late almost every day. Dario, her husband, could not ignore this anymore. He would ask gently, "Emily, why are you always so late these days?" To which Emily would quickly reply with excuses about office work, meetings, or extra responsibilities. Although Dario nodded and pretended to believe her, In his heart, the fire of doubt was burning brighter at night. When Amelie slept peacefully beside him, Dario would lie awake staring at the ceiling, thinking, something is wrong. Amelie is hiding something from me. He did not want to lose his wife, but his instincts were telling him that her heart was no longer the same. Amelie, on the other hand, was living in two worlds, one as a wife with Dario, and the other as a secret lover with Noah. She was unaware that the walls of secrecy were slowly closing in around her. One day, after weeks of hiding their feelings, Amelie gathered the courage to tell Noah what she truly wanted. During lunch break, she leaned close to him and whispered, "Noah, I want to spend an entire night with you. Just once." Noah was stunned. He shook his head quickly. "Amelie, no. This is crossing the line. You're married. This isn't right." "But—" Amelie looked into his eyes with longing and replied softly, "Please, just one night. I promise no one will ever know. I need you." For a moment, Noah resisted. He told himself he should walk away. But Amelie's pleading eyes and her passionate words weakened him. At last, after much hesitation, he whispered, "All right. Just one night." Amelie's face lit up with joy. She held his hand tightly, her heart beating fast with excitement. That evening, when everyone had left the office, Amelie secretly called Noah into a separate room. She locked the door and pulled him into her arms. Noah was nervous, but Amelie kissed him deeply, erasing all his doubts. For hours, they forgot the world and surrendered themselves completely to Forbidden's love. Later that night, Amelie returned home very late. Dario, sitting silently in the living room, watched her enter. He did not ask any questions, but in his heart the suspicion turned into certainty.
He knew something was wrong. Amelie smiled faintly and pretended as if nothing had happened,
while Dario forced himself to remain calm. But deep inside, he was breaking apart. That night, while Amelie slept peacefully, Dario stared at her face. In the darkness, his love for her was still strong, but his trust had begun to shatter. He whispered to himself, "Amelie, what are you hiding from me?" The days went by, but Dario's heart found no peace. Every evening, Amelie returned home late, carrying the same excuse: extra office work, meetings, deadlines. At first, Dario tried to convince himself. He told himself, "She is my wife. She would never betray me. I should trust her." But trust alone could not silence the storm of doubt that was building inside him. He began noticing little changes: Amelie's perfume lingering more strongly, her phone always on silent, the distant smile on her face as though her thoughts were somewhere else. One evening, while Amelie was in the shower, Dario picked up her phone. His hands trembled as he unlocked it, only to find her chats deleted. Every conversation with Noah was erased carefully. That act itself was enough to confirm his suspicions. If there was nothing wrong, Dario thought bitterly, why would she hide everything? Meanwhile, Amelie lived as if nothing was unusual. She played the role of a loving wife at home, but her heart and mind were consumed by thoughts of Noah. She would eagerly plan when she could see him next, what excuse she would use, and how to hide the truth from her husband. At work, Amelie and Noah grew even bolder. A stolen glance in the hallway, secret meetings behind closed doors, whispers that carried more than just words. For them, it was thrilling. For Dario, it was the silent destruction of everything he held dear. One night, as Dario lay awake in bed, he stared at the ceiling and thought, I gave her all my love. I worked day and night in that hotel to give her a better life. And now, she is giving her heart to someone else. Tears welled in his eyes, but he quickly wiped them away. He was determined to find the truth with his own eyes. Dario's suspicion was no longer just suspicion. It had become a burning determination. And soon, he would follow Amelie into the shadows she thought were safe. Amelie's feelings for Noah grew stronger with every passing day. What had started as a playful attraction had now turned into an obsession. She could not stop thinking about him, even when she was at home with Dario. One afternoon in the office, Amelie found herself alone with Noah. She leaned closer, her eyes filled with intensity, and whispered, Noah, I don't just want one night. I want more. I want you to be mine. Noah froze, his heart pounding. He had never imagined Amelie would go this far. He shook his head and replied, Emily, this is dangerous. You're married. People will find out. Dario will know. Do you realize what you're asking? But Emily pressed on. She touched his hand gently and said, Don't be afraid. I'll handle everything. My heart belongs to you now, Noah. Please. Accept me. Noah was torn. Deep inside, he knew it was wrong. He respected Dario, even if they barely knew each other. He respected the sanctity of marriage. But Emily's eyes, her charm, and the way she clung to him made his resistance weaker. Each time. I don't know if I can give you what you want, Noah whispered. Emily smiled, confident that sooner or later he would give in completely. You don't need to answer right now, she said softly. But remember, I won't stop loving you. And I won't stop until you accept me. From that day on, Emily's pursuit of Noah became relentless. She found excuses to spend more time with him: extra office projects, late-night discussions, sudden lunches outside. She showered him with compliments, gifts, and endless affection. Noah tried to resist, but the wall he had built around his heart was slowly crumbling. Every stolen moment with Emily pulled him deeper into the fire he wanted to escape. Meanwhile, Dario remained in the background, watching silently, his suspicion sharpening into certainty. He knew Amelie was slipping away from him, but he still didn't have the proof he needed. The storm was approaching, and none of them were ready for its consequences. Amelie's obsession had reached its peak. She no longer wanted to wait or hide behind excuses. One evening in the office, after most employees had left, she looked at Noah with burning eyes and said, Tonight, you will stay with me. Just one night, Noah. That's all I ask. Noah's face went pale. His heart raced. He shook
His head quickly. No, Emily.
This is madness. I can't do this. You're Dario's wife. If anyone finds out, it will destroy us both. But Emily stepped closer, her voice soft yet insistent. Please, Noah, don't refuse me tonight. I love you more than anything. I need you. Only you. Noah tried to resist.
He paced the room, ran his hand through his hair, and muttered, This isn't right. This will ruin everything.
Emily, however, would not give up. She touched his arm, then rested her head on his chest, whispering with trembling lips, If you truly care for me, don't leave me alone tonight. Her words struck his heart like a blade. Noah stood frozen, torn between morality and desire. For a moment, silence filled the empty office. Then, almost against his own will, he whispered, Fine, just tonight. Emily's face lit up with joy. She immediately pulled him into a secluded office room and locked the door behind them. Her heart pounded wildly as she wrapped her arms around him, kissing him with desperate passion. For Emily, it felt like victory, a dream coming true. For Noah, it was the beginning of regret, even as he gave in to the moment. Late that night, Emily returned home. Dario was sitting silently in the living room, staring at her. She smiled faintly and walked past him as if nothing had happened. Dario said nothing. But deep inside, the silence was louder than any words. His doubts had turned into a painful certainty. Something was happening behind his back. And so, the distance between husband and wife grew wider, while Emily drowned deeper into her dangerous game. The next day, Emily's desire grew even stronger. The taste of the previous night had only fueled her hunger. She decided to take things further. After office hours, she approached Noah and whispered with a playful smile, Come with me tonight. Let's go to the club. I want to be with you again. Not in the shadows of the office, but somewhere free. Noah hesitated. He knew the risk was enormous. Emily, this is dangerous. What if someone sees us? What if Dario finds out? But Emily brushed his worries aside, holding his hand firmly. Don't think about anyone else. Tonight is only for us. Reluctantly, Noah agreed. That night, Emily and Noah met at a club on the outskirts of the city. The music was loud, the lights dim, and the atmosphere intoxicating. Emily leaned close to him, whispering sweet words in his ear, her hand never leaving his. They moved to a private corner, where Emily clung to him with burning passion. For her, this was liberation, a life away from her husband's silent suspicion. But what Emily did not know was that Dario had begun following her.
His patience had run out and his love had turned into suspicion strong enough to act on. That
night, while Emily and Noah were at the club, Dario entered quietly. His eyes scanned the crowd until they fell upon the sight he dreaded most, his wife in the arms of another man. His heart shattered in silence, but his rage boiled inside. Instead of confronting them directly, he stepped outside and dialed the police. His voice was cold, his decision final. Within minutes, the club's doors opened to uniformed officers. The flashing lights, the sudden commotion, it all happened so fast. Noah was taken by surprise as the police surrounded him. Emily's face turned pale, horror replacing her passion. Dario stood at a distance, watching it all unfold. His eyes no longer held love, only betrayal and fury. That night, everything changed forever. Emily's world collapsed, and Noah's mistake sealed his fate. The scene at the club turned into chaos. Music stopped, people screamed, and the flashing police lights spread panic across the floor. Emily stood frozen, her hands trembling, as the officers grabbed Noah by the arms. "What's happening? Why are you taking him?" Emily cried out desperately. Noah, his face pale, tried to resist, but the grip of the police was firm. "Emily, don't say anything. Stay quiet," he shouted. But fear cracked in his voice. The officers announced clearly, "You are under arrest for misconduct and immoral activity. You will come with us." Emily ran toward him, clutching his arm, her tears falling uncontrollably. "Please, don't take him. He did nothing wrong. It's my fault, not his." But her pleas were drowned by the noise of the crowd and the firm command of the police. Noah was dragged out of the club, his head bowed in shame, while the people around whispered and pointed at them. In the corner, Dario stood silently, his jaw tight, his eyes cold like stone. For him, this was the ultimate betrayal. Watching his wife beg for another man broke him completely. When the police car drove away with Noah, Emily turned and saw Dario. Her heart sank. She tried to run toward him, her voice shaking. "Dario, please, listen to me. I can explain," but Dario raised his hand, stopping her words. His face was pale, his lips trembling, but his voice was firm. "There is nothing left to explain. Emily." Without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving her standing in the cold night air. Surrounded by strangers and shame, Emily felt her world crumble. She wanted to chase after him, to hold his hand, to beg for forgiveness, but her feet wouldn't move. That night, she returned home alone. The silence of the house was unbearable. Dario was not there. His absence was louder than any argument, sharper than any insult, and in her heart, Emily realized the life she once had with Dario was slipping away forever. The following morning, Emily woke up with swollen eyes. The weight of last night's events pressed heavily on her chest. She hoped just faintly that Dario would come back, that he might still give her a chance to explain. But when she walked into the living room, she found him sitting quietly, a suitcase beside him. His face was calm, but his eyes were full of pain. Emily rushed forward, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Dario, please, listen to me. I know I made a mistake. I was weak. I lost myself, but I love you. Please don't leave me." Dario stood up slowly, his voice quiet but firm. "Love? Emily, love doesn't look like this. Love doesn't destroy trust. Love doesn't make me watch my wife in another man's arms." She fell to her knees, holding his hand tightly. "Give me one chance, just one chance. I will never repeat it. I swear to you, Dario." But Dario pulled his hand away. His eyes were wet, though he tried to hide it. He opened a folder from the table and placed a set of papers in front of her. "This is the end, Emily. I can't live with betrayal. I'm filing for divorce." The word divorce shattered her completely. Her heart felt like it had been torn apart. She shook her head, refusing to believe it. No, Dario, please don't do this. We can fix it. I can change." But Dario didn't respond. He picked up his suitcase and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he looked back one last time. "You were the love of my life, Emily. But you chose another path. Now I must choose mine." And with that, he left. The sound of the door closing echoed like thunder in Emily's ears. She collapsed on the floor, clutching the divorce papers, crying until her voice broke. For the first time, she realized the cost of her choices. She had lost Noah to the police. She had lost Dario to betrayal. And she had lost herself to her own desires. That morning, Emily was no longer a wife, no longer a beloved partner. She was simply alone. Days turned into weeks, but Emily's life only grew darker. The house that once echoed with laughter now felt like a cold, empty prison. Every corner reminded her of Dario, his smile, his voice, the little things he used to do. She tried to call him several times, but he never answered. Sometimes she would wait outside the hotel where he worked, hoping to see him, but he always avoided her. The wall between them had grown too high to break. At the office, whispers followed her everywhere. Everyone knew about the scandal with Noah. Colleagues who once respected her now looked at her with judgment. She could feel their eyes piercing her back, their silent conversations cutting her deeper than words. Emily sat alone in her cabin, staring at the empty desk across from her where Noah used to sit. His arrest had made headlines in the local news, and the company had immediately suspended him. She didn't know if he would ever come back, or if he even wanted to. Her loneliness became unbearable. At night she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, remembering the moments she had ruined with her own hands. She thought of Dario's gentle touch, his patient heart, his unwavering loyalty. And every time guilt stabbed her like a knife. One evening she gathered the courage to visit Dario's parents, hoping they could help, but even they refused to meet her. His mother's words still echoed in her ears. A wife who cannot respect her husband does not belong in his home. Those words cut deeper than any punishment. Emily returned home, sat by the window, and cried until her tears ran dry. She realized she had not only lost her husband, but also the respect of society, her family and herself. The silence of her empty apartment became her companion. Meals went untouched, nights stretched endlessly, and mornings brought no hope. One night, as she looked at her reflection in the mirror, she whispered to herself, "Who am I now? A wife without a husband, a lover without love, or just a broken woman with nothing left?" And in that moment, Emily understood the price of betrayal was not just divorce. It was losing everything that once gave her life meaning. Emily tried to rebuild her life, but every step felt heavy. The divorce papers were finalized, and the reality of her broken marriage hit her harder each day. She was no longer Emily, the loving wife. She was just Emily, the woman who had lost everything. At work, she put on a mask of strength, but inside she was falling apart. The whispers of colleagues had not stopped. Some pitied her, others mocked her silently. The office that once felt like a place of power now felt like a battlefield where she fought daily to keep her dignity. One afternoon, while sitting in her office, she saw Dario enter the building. Her heart skipped a beat. He had come for a business meeting in the hotel's conference hall next door, and fate had brought him across her path. For a moment their eyes met. Emily's chest tightened with hope. She rushed toward him, her voice trembling. "Dario, please, just hear me once. I can't live without you. I'm not the same anymore. I've changed." But Dario's eyes were distant, cold, and resolute. "Emily, there was a time when I would have given my life for you, but now I can't even give you my time. I don't hate you, but I can't forgive you either." Those words broke her heart all over again. She stood frozen as he walked away, leaving her behind once more. That night, Emily drowned herself in tears. She remembered the club, the mistakes, the moments of weakness that had stolen everything from her. Noah was in jail, Dario was gone, and she was left to carry the weight of her choices alone. But in the midst of her pain, a small voice inside whispered, "You must survive. You must rise again. Life does not end here." The thought scared her, but it also gave her a tiny spark of courage. She couldn't change the past, but maybe, just maybe, she could try to rebuild her future. Emily promised herself one thing. She would not let this failure define her forever. Yet deep down, she knew the road ahead would not be easy. Weeks turned into months, yet Emily's pain refused to leave her. Every morning she woke up with the same emptiness, the same guilt, the same endless regret. She often found herself staring at old photographs, her and Dario smiling together, celebrating birthdays, laughing at small things. Each picture was like a dagger reminding her of what she had lost. Sometimes she would dial his number late at night, only to hang up before he answered. She wanted to hear his voice, but she was terrified of his silence, terrified of being rejected again. At work, things grew even worse. Her position as manager remained, but the respect of her staff was gone. They followed her orders because they had to, not because they admired her. She was isolated, trapped in her own world of shame. One rainy evening, she sat by her window, watching the city lights blur through her tears. She whispered to herself, "Why did I do this? Why did I ruin my own happiness?" Was one moment of desire worth destroying a lifetime of love? The memory of Noah haunted her too. She remembered the first time he smiled at her, the way she felt alive again, the dangerous thrill of his attention. But now that memory only burned her with shame. News had spread that Noah was still behind bars, waiting for his trial. Emily wondered if he ever thought of her, or if he blamed her for his downfall. The truth was, she blamed herself for everything. One day, while leaving the office, she saw Dario across the street. He was walking with a colleague, smiling faintly. Her heart ached to run to him, to beg him one more time. But she stopped herself. She knew he was free of her now, and she was nothing but a shadow of his past. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, whispering again and again, "If only I could turn back time. If only I could undo my mistake." But time never moves backward, and regret never heals a broken past. Emily was left with only one truth. She had chosen her path, and now she had to walk through the darkness it brought. Emily's house no longer felt like a home. Every corner reminded her of Dario. The walls still carried his laughter. The kitchen still smelled of the meals they once cooked together, and the bed still carried the emptiness of nights spent alone. She tried to keep herself busy cleaning, cooking, even redecorating, but nothing worked. The silence was unbearable. The same silence that once felt peaceful with Dario now felt like a punishment. One evening, she stood in front of the mirror, staring at her reflection. Her once bright eyes now looked tired, her face carried lines of worry, and her smile had disappeared. She whispered, "Is this really me? The woman who destroyed her own happiness?" Emily began visiting the church nearby, sitting quietly in the back pew. She didn't always pray, but she sat there, searching for peace, searching for forgiveness. Some days she cried silently. Other days she just sat numb and lost. One Sunday, as she left the church, she saw a familiar car parked across the street. It was Dario's. Her heart stopped. Was he here too? She looked around but couldn't find him. She wanted to believe it was a sign, that maybe he was still searching for comfort just like her, but deep down she knew Dario had moved on. He was strong, determined, and proud. Unlike her, he would not let the past control his future. Back at home, loneliness wrapped itself around her again. She cooked dinner but left one plate untouched, staring at it as if waiting for Dario to walk through the door. But the door never opened. That night, she lay awake, replaying the day she betrayed him. The moment she kissed Noah, the moment she crossed the line. Every detail felt sharp and fresh, cutting her soul again and again. If I had only said no. If I had walked away. If I had remembered Dario's love. She whispered through her tears, but the past was unchangeable. Her mistakes were permanent. And so, Emily sat in the dark, holding her pillow tight, crying into the night, knowing that no matter what she did, her home, her heart, and her life would never be the same again. Months passed, and Emily slowly began to pick up the pieces of her shattered life. Though the pain of losing Dario and the shame of her mistakes never fully left her, she realized she had to survive. She had to find a way to move forward. At work, she focused entirely on her career. She stayed late, completed every project with precision, and began earning recognition again. Though her colleagues were cautious around her, some slowly started to respect her dedication. One evening, as she left the office, she met a kind colleague named Alexander. He was polite, intelligent, and treated her with respect without judgment. Amelie found herself smiling at his small gestures, helping with files, offering advice and listening patiently. For the first time in months, Amelie felt a small spark of warmth in her heart. It wasn't the dangerous thrill she had felt with Noah, nor the deep love she had for Dario. It was calm, steady, and safe, a feeling she had forgotten existed. Alexander noticed her hesitation and said gently, "You've been through a lot, Amelie. But I see strength in you. You don't have to face it all alone." Amelie felt a tear slip down her cheek. She whispered softly, "I don't know if I can trust anyone again. I've made too many mistakes." Alexander smiled and replied, "Trust is built slowly, step by step. You don't need to rush." For the first time, Amelie felt hope. She realized that life wasn't over, that she could rebuild herself. She could rise from the mistakes of the past, even if the scars remained. That night, as she returned home, Amelie looked at her reflection in the mirror. She was still the same person who had made terrible choices, but she was also a woman who had survived the storm. "I may be broken," she whispered, "but I am not defeated. I will find a way to live again." Though Dario was gone and Noah was in prison, Amelie understood that the future still held possibilities. Life would not be the same, but it could still be meaningful. And for the first time in a long while, she slept that night with a small, quiet smile on her face, knowing that tomorrow could be a new beginning. Even as Amelie tried to rebuild her life, the shadows of her past followed her everywhere. Every memory of Dario and Noah haunted her. The faces, the places, and the decisions she had made kept replaying in her mind. One day, she received a letter at her office. Her hands trembled as she opened it. It was from the lawyer handling her divorce, informing her that Dario had finalized everything. There was no turning back. No joint property, no shared accounts, nothing remained between them. Amelie's heart sank. She had known this would happen eventually, but seeing it in writing made it real. The letter reminded her that Dario had moved on and that she was truly alone. That evening she went for a long walk, trying to clear her mind. She passed the cafe where she had shared her first moments with Noah and felt a sharp pang of regret. The excitement she had once felt now seemed foolish and destructive, she realized. How blind she had been. Her desire had clouded her judgment, and her choices had destroyed not only her marriage, but also her reputation and self-respect. When she returned home, she sat in the living room, staring at the empty space across from her. For a moment she allowed herself to cry, not just for Dario, but for the life she had lost, the mistakes she had made, and the person she had become. Then she whispered softly to herself, "I cannot change the past, but I can control my future. I will not be a prisoner of my regrets." From that day on, Amelie vowed to face her past honestly. She would accept her mistakes, learn from them, and try to become a stronger, wiser person. It would not be easy, and the pain would linger. But she knew she could no longer run from reality. For the first time, she felt a sense of clarity. The path ahead would be difficult, but it was hers to walk. And with determination, Amelie decided she would walk it alone if necessary, but with courage. Weeks passed, and Amelie began to focus more on herself. She understood that her life could no longer depend on anyone else, not Dario, not Noah, not anyone. Her mistakes had taught her a harsh lesson, but now it was time to rebuild. She started waking up early, exercising, and creating a strict routine. Every day she worked on her career, her skills, and her personal growth. Slowly, she regained some of her confidence. People at the office began to notice a change in her. She was no longer the timid, guilty woman from before. Amelie also started journaling her thoughts and feelings. Writing helped her release the anger, regret, and sorrow she had carried for months. She could see patterns in her behavior, understand her weaknesses, and plan ways to avoid repeating her past mistakes. Occasionally, she would think of Dario. The memories were painful, but she stopped blaming him for leaving. She knew it was her choices that had caused their separation. With each passing day, the intensity of her sorrow diminished, replaced by quiet determination. One afternoon, Alexander, the kind colleague who had been supportive, invited her for coffee. "You've changed, Amelie," he said gently. "I see the strength in you now." Emily smiled faintly, her heart feeling lighter than it had in months. "Thank you, Alexander," she replied. "I am trying. It's not easy, but I have to." Her days became structured. She focused on work, exercised, journaled, and even learned new skills to advance her career. The loneliness remained, but it no longer paralyzed her. It motivated her to become better, stronger, and wiser. Emily realized that while she had lost love and trust, she had not lost herself completely. She could still rebuild a life filled with purpose, even if it was different from the one she once dreamed of. And in that realization, a new spark ignited inside her, a spark of hope, resilience, and determination. Months of hard work and self-reflection began to pay off for Emily. She had accepted her past mistakes and was slowly learning to forgive herself. The guilt that had weighed heavily on her heart was still there, but it no longer controlled her every thought. She spent quiet evenings thinking about Dario, Noah, and the life she had lost. Each memory brought pain, yet also a lesson. She realized that life was unpredictable and people make choices that sometimes hurt others. But dwelling on what was gone would not change it. At work, Emily focused on building professional relationships. She was no longer seeking approval or validation from others. She took on challenging projects, mentoring colleagues, and slowly earning their respect. Her reputation began to improve, not because of charm or manipulation, but because of her skill and perseverance. One night, she sat by the window staring at the city lights. The silence was no longer suffocating. Instead, it felt like a space to breathe and think. She whispered softly, "I cannot bring back Dario. I cannot free Noah. But I can live my life honestly, with dignity and purpose." Emily also started helping others who were struggling with their own mistakes. She shared her story cautiously, hoping to prevent others from repeating her errors. Her pain became a tool to guide and support those in need. Though loneliness sometimes returned, she faced it with strength rather than despair. She had learned that life's challenges do not disappear, but how one responds to them defines their future. For the first time in a long while, Emily felt a sense of peace. It was not the happiness she once imagined with Dario, nor the thrill she had with Noah. It was a quiet, steady feeling acceptance. Emily realized that life had given her a second chance, not with love, but with herself. And she was determined not to waste it. Emily had reached a turning point in her life. The heartbreak, betrayal, and mistakes of the past no longer held her captive. She had learned from them, accepted the consequences, and discovered a new sense of strength. She continued to focus on her career, earning promotions and respect from colleagues who once doubted her. Her hard work and dedication became her identity, replacing the shame and regret that had once defined her. Emily also embraced a healthier lifestyle, spending time outdoors, exercising, and maintaining a balanced routine. She discovered hobbies she had ignored, like reading, painting, and even cooking new recipes. Each small accomplishment reminded her that life could still hold joy, even without Dario or Noah. Although the memories of her past lingered, she no longer allowed them to dominate her thoughts. She would remember Dario with gratitude for the love he had once given her and think of Noah as a lesson in desire and consequences. Occasionally, Alexander, the kind colleague who had supported her, continued to check in. Their friendship provided a gentle warmth, a reminder that people could still be trustworthy and kind. Emily began to realize that while love could hurt, connection and support could heal. One evening, as she looked out the window at the setting sun, she whispered to herself, "I may have lost my past, but I still have my future. I am stronger than I ever knew." The pain was still there, the scars visible, but Emily had found resilience. She had learned that life does not stop after loss, it continues, and it is up to each person to shape it. With renewed determination, she made a promise to herself. She would live honestly, work hard, and never allow herself to lose control of her life again. The past would remain as a lesson, not a chain, and so, Emily moved forward, quietly, steadily, and with hope in her heart for the life she could still build. Emily's journey had been long and painful. She had faced betrayal, temptation, and loss, and had learned the harshest lessons of life. Yet, through all the heartbreak, she had survived and grown stronger. The house that once felt empty now felt like her sanctuary. She filled it with small joys, fresh flowers, books, music, and the warmth of her own independence. She no longer waited for anyone to complete her life. She was enough on her own. At work, she thrived. Her talent and determination earned her respect, and slowly she built a supportive circle of colleagues and friends. People who valued her not for her past mistakes, but for the strength she displayed each day. Emily continued her journey of self-discovery. She learned new skills, traveled to places she had only dreamed of, and explored passions she had forgotten. Each small success reminded her that life still had opportunities for happiness and fulfillment. Though Dario and Noah remained parts of her past, she no longer carried pain for them in her heart. She forgave herself first, understanding that mistakes do not define a person, they teach them. One quiet evening, Emily sat by the window, watching the sun set. She whispered softly, "I am free, I am strong, I am me." For the first time in a long while, she felt complete. She had survived the storm of her own choices, embraced her mistakes, and created a life worth living. Her story was one of heartbreak, loss, and regret, but also of courage, growth, and resilience. Emily had learned that the greatest love one could have is the love for oneself, and with that love, she could face anything life brought her way. And so, Emily stepped into the future with hope in her heart, strength in her spirit, and a determination to live fully without fear, without regret, and without looking back.